Let me start, as others have, by congratulating Bill Kidd on securing this important debate on the pressing issue of human rights. And let me also thank my intern, Claire, who joined me last week, whom I asked to look at this subject and write my speaking notes for me. Now, despite being at the forefront of the movement to abolish the death penalty, we shouldn't forget that it was actually practiced in our country until relatively recently. The last execution on Scottish soil was of Henry John Burnet in 1963, and it took until 1998 for the death penalty to be fully abolished under the European Convention on Human Rights, as we've just heard referred to. Now, while we can be proud that no injustice of this kind any longer occurs in Scotland, we mustn't fall into complacency, as we're not yet all free from the threat of the death penalty. Opposition to the death penalty is not only based on denial of human rights, but also that it sets a precedent for a more broadly vindictive society. The continued existence of capital punishment forces us to ask, in what sort of society do we wish to live, and do we wish to help others to live? The utilisation of the death penalty creates an authoritarian, brutal and regressive atmosphere that can seep into every part of life. I believe we must aim for our democracies to set an example to other countries, not democracies, that we should value compassionate justice and choose rehabilitation over retribution. Rehabilitation is difficult if that person who needs to be rehabilitated has been executed. Now, such priorities are not to be weak on crime, but actually make us better equipped to reducing it. It's no coincidence that states that still employ the death penalty have higher murder rates than those that uphold the human rights of their citizens. The argument that it provides a deterrent is one that simply isn't borne out by the evidence in countries which are democracies or claim to be, where the death penalty is still part of their criminal justice system. The motion brought to us today cites the trend towards the abolition of the death penalty. We heard that two-thirds of countries have abolished the death penalty in law or in practice. The tide is turning against the death penalty as more and more countries choose to reject such an outright denial and outright termination of human rights. 2018, Burkina Faso's National Assembly abolished the death penalty, making them the latest of many countries to move away from capital punishment. The European Union has been at the forefront of the fight against the death penalty, not only banning it in all EU member states, but being the largest donor to anti-death penalty campaigns. And indeed, in 2007, that was when October the 10th was designated European Day Against the Death Penalty. And we in Scotland, in the UK, share that commitment to protect and ensure the rights of all our citizens. Now, while progress is being made every year, Presiding Officer, at least 20 countries carried out executions in 2018, as many colleagues have referred to. As we look to the future, let this motion stand to rightfully acknowledge Scotland's firm support of the abolition of the death penalty, and we as a Parliament are part of that. I hope we continue to take the time to recognise World Action Against Death Penalty Day. Let us continue to promote and uphold human rights around the world as we push to eliminate such a cruel punishment from ever existing.